Welcome back to Fantasy Football Today. Got a fun slate of games for you coming up at 1 o'clock on CBS. The Lions and Cowboys is the spotlight game there, but Browns and Ravens should be fun. Colts and Titans should be fun as well. Rematch there from their Week 4 game, and the Colts and Titans could be the two best teams in the AFC South. Let's get to that Lions and Cowboys game, and joining us now on Fantasy Football Today is Tom Spencer, CBS Sports editorial consultant. He's in the booth with Jim Nantz and Tony Romo. They'll be on the call today for CBS Sports. So, Tom, we got the big story from the Lions backfield. DeAndre Swift not expected to go. So if that is the case, what are we to make of this Lions backfield? Is it going to be a lot of Jamal Williams, a lot of Williams and Craig Reynolds? How do you see this split going if Swift is not there?
Well, just the way you said it. And one thing that we've been learning this week, and we have not done the Lions a lot, so we'll preface it by saying it'll be fun to see them live and in person. But in watching them on tape, this is, we feel at least, one of the best, if not the best offensive line in the NFL. That might surprise some people. So, it could be almost a plug and play. Now, Jamal Williams, if you look at the touchdown ratios for the runners this year, Nick Chubb, of course, having a dominant season, 7 rushing touchdowns, but Jamal Williams, as you see here, 6 rushing touchdowns. So he and Jalen Hurts, tied for second in that category. He's a great red zone threat. The thing you miss when DeAndre Swift is hurt, as he is now, and possibly not playing, is just his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. He's dynamic in that regard. And that's something that once he gets back, Detroit's an interesting team, Jamie. Their offense has been lighting up opponents all year other than New England. Of course, Belichick has a history with Jared Goff going back to the Super Bowl of stifling his offenses, but they have weapons all over the place. And once Swift is 100% healthy with Jamal Williams, you mentioned Craig Reynolds, every time he touches the ball, which hasn't been a huge sample size, it's nearly 5 yards a carry. It's over 16 yards per reception. So once again, Detroit's offensive line might be their best threat on offense, and they can run the football at you in a lot of ways, very creatively. It'd be fun to see. By the way, their new offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson, a name to get familiar with. He's come up with a lot of good run concepts this year for Detroit.
Yeah, we're definitely excited about Ben Johnson, and this offense, like you mentioned, has a lot of weapons. We know DJ Chark has been placed on IR, so this receiving core is a little bit in flux. No Jamison Williams yet. Josh Reynolds is expected to play. So talk about this passing game, because we know this Cowboys secondary and this pass rush has been fantastic as well. So good, chess match going on there between Ben Johnson's crew and Dan Quinn's crew. How do you see Reynolds coming off the injury? Amon-Ra St. Brown was a little bit banged up. TJ Hawkinson. Just talk about the Lions passing game.
Yeah. Well, first of all, as you point out, Dallas, they're number 1 in the league in sacks, so they're going to put pressure on you. Here's a good statistic, which fantasy owners might appreciate. Dallas has not had one single pass interference called on them this year. So if wow. Detroit's going to get yards today, it's going to be through the natural progression of completions and rush yards. That's probably a good thing. The other thing, if you're a Detroit fan, Dan Campbell loves to go for it on 4th down. 71 times he's gone for it on 4th down when he's been a head coach in this league. This is a good collection of receivers. Now, Chark goes on IR yesterday. That's disappointing. Jamison Williams, they're hopeful he can come back this year. We'll see. But St. Brown, in talking to Goff yesterday, first of all, he has great history with Josh Reynolds back from his Ram days. Good intermediate threat, someone he really trusts over the middle of the field. He should be good to go today. St. Brown, 78 catches, Jamie, since last Thanksgiving. And in listening to Goff, and we have not been around Jared a lot the last couple of years, but he has matured as a quarterback. He is taking total ownership of this offense. And in talking about St. Brown to us yesterday, he made comparisons to Cooper Kupp. Now, let's not get too ahead of ourselves here, but in this way, he says he's incredibly smart. He's a great route runner. I mentioned the statistics about what he's done over the last 10 games. And he says, Jared Goff, that St. Brown, at some point in his career, will be the best slot receiver in the NFL. We'll see. Very high praise, but he's a guy that you can rely upon, and they're excited to see what he can do to get today against this Dallas defense.
Yeah, he's been a star. Thankfully he's healthy again, battling that ankle injury a few weeks ago. So glad to see him back coming off the bye. Let's switch sides to the other team, and obviously I think we might have buried the lead a little bit, but for fantasy purposes, the Lions' injuries somewhat matter a little more. But Dak Prescott coming back from the thumb injury, any limitations expected on him, or are we going to see the typical Dak Prescott performance today against the Lions?
Well, we came and met with him yesterday, and the first thing he did to us was show us his thumb, and there were no issues. I saw the scar, and of course, it's a serious surgery, but he's ready to go. He was talking about the limitations that he had like 2.5 weeks ago. He couldn't tie his shoe with his right hand. That would cause swelling. So, he's fine to go. But the question is, what does Dallas want to do this year on offense? Mike McCarthy in his tenure as a head coach has never had, other than 1 year in Green Bay when they won the Super Bowl, a top 10 defense. So the formula, as Cooper Rush proved, rely on your running game. Again, a good offensive, if not great offensive line potentially here in Dallas. And then let Dak make the throws, when necessary. Now, if you want to go back last year, Jamie, after the big injury in 2020, his first game of 21, after the big layoff, 403 yards at Tampa Bay. But I think this is a different Dallas offense this year. Dak can still light it up down the field, but there's chemistry that he has to develop with a couple of his wide receivers. Gallup is still on the comeback trail. Dalton Schultz, not 100%, although we expect him to play today. And CeeDee Lamb, the production has not quite been there. He has not had a 100-yard receiving game yet this year, and only one catch of 30 yards or more after 9 last year. So a lot of things for Dak to work through. But as far as limitations and offensive firepower, Dallas should be pretty much close to full strength today.
That's going to be tough for that Lions defense because they really struggled against almost everything, while the offense, like you said earlier, has put up a lot of points. They have to because the defense has struggled. So let's talk about the backfield there for the Cowboys, because it's always a question mark for fantasy managers. Is it going to be a Pollard week or a Zeke week? I think it could be both based on this Lions defense. How do you see this backfield shaping up today?
Yeah, the Lions defense is the worst in the league. Points allowed, yards per game. Dallas wants to run the ball right at you. They want to play power football. Zeke statistically has more scrimmage yards than Pollard. And of course, Pollard is the more dynamic threat. Interesting comparison yesterday from McCarthy, whose tenure, if you go back and research, it goes back to San Francisco, Kansas City, and he thought that Pollard reminded him of Marcus Allen in terms of his efficiency running the ball, no wasted steps, gliding through the line. So Zeke had last week at Philadelphia over 6 yards per carry. He looks good. Dallas is very optimistic. They can run the football all year long, including when we get into November, December, and hopefully January. It's a two-headed monster here. They're going to split touches today. Pollard, of course, is a better threat in the pass game. And Detroit, the one thing we'll be very interested to see today, Jamie, what does Detroit do on defense coming off the bye? Do they change things up? What are the wrinkles they throw at Dallas to try to maybe mitigate this run game? But you can be sure that the Cowboys want run the football, play action passes today, and see if that can get them the victory.
Should be a fun game, Tom. We appreciate your time here, as always, breaking it down on Fantasy Football today. We look forward to the call on CBS with Jim Nantz and Tony Romo, and you right by their side. So thanks, as always, for being with us here on FFT.
Thank you.
Make sure you check out that game. Make sure you check out Inside the NFL. New episode drops every Tuesday exclusively on Paramount+. JB and the gang keeping you up to date on all the latest news inside the NFL. Again, Tuesdays exclusively on Paramount+.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.